Like the nothing in the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff, while you're breaking me down, you can feel your fingers stick.
Hey, this is Ryan Heron here from Portland, Oregon, and I'm with
Amanda Breeze, and I am finally back in Toronto.
Yes. Today's episode, we're digging into what we got into for 420. We hope you guys all had a great day of smoking weed and celebrating it a little outside of the norm. Amanda had a hell of a time.
Oh yeah.
And I want to dig into that today. So what did you get into?
Honestly, I would say that this definitely would have to be one of my most memorable 420s of all time. Hands down. I was like 1 foot away from Afro Man.
Yes.
I couldn't touch him. I was standing there being like, should I touch him? Should I touch him? I was like, don't touch people. That's weird. But he was literally less than arm's length away. And I was like, holy shit. That's a big deal.
I love that. Also, Afro Man has been great because his house was recently raided. They were literally only looking for weed. And he got it all on camera of them like raiding his house and turned it into a little fun song. And
the music video. Yes.
Yeah. It's good for him, man. You know, if you're that's really making lemonade out of some lemons there.
Well, I would say that he still got it. You know, of course he played because I got high. The crowd went wild. We were in Vancouver, British Columbia. It was pouring rain, like torrential freaking downpour. It was the park was muddy. It was very chaotic. The rain was such a nuisance. I hate being wet. It's my least favorite weather. And he went out there. He went out there and gave it, and the crowd was going wild. And man, it was great. That was probably one of my 420 highlights for sure. We'll get to the other highlight here, which was the world's biggest joint.
Yes. Like 420 in general has kind of teetered that line between like kind of cool and kind of embarrassing for the weed community. Weed community is always in my mind like approaching the that's kind of too much blacklight poster stonery dude thing. But I've had some good 420s.
Let's hear your top 420 story.
Oh my God. Okay. I bet you if I could like sit down and look through all my photos, I'd be like, oh yeah, I did smoke a joint with Afro Man. I just totally forgot. But what I do remember is as a younger man going to Ann Arbor, Michigan for Hash Bash, which was a big thing every year. You know, I would go to like summer festivals where you would camp out and people would walk around and they'd have their little like Pelly cases full of glass that they blew. But Hash Bash was like on a whole other level where there would just be like, you know, little areas set up where all the glass blowers could hang out and you could go and you could look at like 300 pieces. But I'm like so used to like the little head shop guy where you'd go in and you'd say, I recognize these are for tobacco use only. Could I get the one on the left? You know? So my favorite chillum that I ever purchased, I can still picture it today, was from Hash Bash. I loved it. It had like the perfect little hole and the amount you could pack, and it burned up so nicely. And when I lent it to a friend who promised me he would not break it, laughed so hard when he gave me back the broken pieces.
No.
Yeah. Oh, it still stings years and years later. But it was cool just being in like that like kind of open consumption atmosphere and amongst the folks. It felt really good.
You know, I moved away from glassware, a few years ago because I would also get really emotionally attached to my pieces, and then inevitably they break. It's made of glass, and I can think back to some of my favorite bowls and glass pieces that I've lost over the years so fondly, but only in my memory.
Yeah, truly only in my memory because these weren't things I was taking pictures of at the time. This is way before digital cameras, so there's no like historical record of these things. yeah, that's it, right? You either remember it or it's gone forever.
Or you don't.
Right? Speaking of 420. Yeah, it was always one of those things where if I went out, it was about being amongst the people. I think like Hall of Flowers is probably the closest thing I've come to since then, where there's like all of these like chill lounge spots where you can smoke, and it's all in this point, it's no longer community, it's industry, which let's not confuse the two. But still in that like, hey, we're all having fun, we're all here for the same reason. It's a good time.
That's such a good point, because I really do feel the same now. It's that shift of community to industry has really changed cannabis events, has really changed the dynamics when you attend weed parties. And yeah, you really feel that. I did experience the throwback community vibes on 419.
Okay.
I ended up at the New Amsterdam Cafe, which is a pretty well-known weed cafe in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's been around for, I don't even know, maybe 20 years. Let's say at least 15. It's been there since the black market days, which says a lot.
Yeah, I think that's where I found weed when I went to Toronto 10 years ago, to Vancouver, excuse me.
Yes. Yeah, that would be the place to go in the black market days for sure. It was super well known and kind of grimy and sort of like a cave. It had like, the weird cartoony type murals on the wall and shit. Like it was very of that era. I went back for the first time in probably like 10 years on 419. And they've revamped it completely. It's super modern and has like super nice. It's still comfy. Like it's still really comfy. It's such a nice space. And then the basement, they were hosting kind of like a Canna Cup. So by the time I got there, there was like, 50 people in this little room. It was completely hotboxed. And one of my absolute favorite comedians was doing a show there. So that was so fun because Mike Rita fucking rules. He is so fucking funny. And he's Portuguese. I'm half Portuguese. So he does this whole Portuguese thing as well that it really resonates with me in my childhood. And anyway, he performed and it was so freaking delightful. I had such a good night. I got so stoned, but that stoned where you just like your face hurts because you're smiling. And it was like such a good 419 party. And the vibe was community cannabis scene. It was a lot of old heads in the room who've been around for 20, 30 years, different growers, just people that love smoking weed. And everyone was going crazy for all the flavors and the smells in the cup. And it was just like such good vibes. I absolutely had the best time. And that happened very randomly because my flight was delayed, which led to a whole series of unintended events. And that was probably one of the perks of the weekend. That was highlight of the weekend for me for sure. Number 1, Afro Man. Number 2, Mike Rita. And number 3, the joint itself.
Yes.
But yeah, the community vibe is kind of lacking at certain events. So this was definitely it was a good throwback. I liked it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to a lot of know that I write for the Oregon Leaf weed magazine here on the West Coast. And we have our big Oregon Cup coming up in about 3 weeks on May 21st. And I'm pretty excited about that. Last year they had they were able to split the consumption into cannabis, and then you could like walk through a hole in the fence and get beers and drinks on the other side. Nice. So it was like separate by like a fence that you could stand at and like talk with someone on the other side. But the space in general was like big and open. And because Oregon is kind of a small community, especially weed at this point, it felt so much more like a community thing than like, oh yeah, I was paid to like make sure my company's edibles make it into this competition. We're really hoping to get 6 awards this year or whatever. It was more like, hey, I can't believe Jim won that award. Fuck that guy. His weed's no good. How in the world did he win? And then they're chatting about it and I'm getting in the middle of it. So yeah, that felt way more like what I want these events to be like. So I hope this year is a repeat of last year.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I like the legacy legal fusion for me these days. I like a good fusion moment where you got all the OGs in the room. They're smoking tough. And you got all the noobs in the room, they're smoking tough, and everyone's just having a good time. But I think inviting the legacy market and the legacy, the people really is what makes a difference of a fun event and in just a normal networking event, which is what a lot of them end up being.
Right. And you know what, like, even from when I was in the food industry, the events where you go and you do it a couple of years and you realize like, oh, my company's not making any money at this. Like maybe we catch a little PR, but what it really ends up being about is commiserating with all of the other people who are there. And you're like, oh, this season, how about this new tax proposal? And man, this sucks. And all right, give me a hug. See you at the next one.
Yeah.
And without those, like, if you only go to one of those a year, people stop connecting with you, and you're no longer the old head. You're like the guy that people are like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. So it's just funny, like how you sort of have to like show up to just be in people's memory, and be hanging around still.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing I noticed is when I flew out to Van, I brought a ton of smoking spot stickers. I brought a bunch of flyers for the aroma wheel, and I brought a ton of business cards. And the only thing I handed out were the stickers. And it's just because that wasn't the place to be like, oh, here's a project I'm working on. Here's my business card. Like, and I actually loved it. I was like, this is so much more fun than handing out business cards and seeing if anyone gets back to you. But also, I will say the stickers were fucking fire. I got a lot of sweet slaps while I was at the event. People really have good stickers right now, and they're just taking them away. I'm like, yes. Rules.
Go heavy on your stickers. Hire the best artists you can. Go for like the crazy die cut. Like have fun with that, because I have spent like $2 per business card before because I thought, ooh, this will leave an impression, and they're all sitting in my garage. Every sticker I've ever printed is stuck up somewhere. So just do that. And the cooler, the better, the more limited edition, this is spring 2023, like do all that cool shit.
It's what's up. Plus I was slapping smoking spot stickers all over Van City, popping them around, giving them out. So I think anyone who lives there is going to see a lot.
Yeah. Snap a pic, send it our way. We will send you something. Yeah, no, I love that. Thanks for spreading the word. I've got my little handful of smoking spot stickers here that are going up around Portland. So hey, if you're part of the smoking spot street team, send us a self-addressed stamp envelope and I will hook you up. Is that a thing anymore?
I haven't heard that in a long time.
I know. I could probably reach deep into my memory for the America's Funniest Home Videos address that you were supposed to send your grandpa getting hit. Like that was a big part of me growing up, watching terrible American Funniest Home Videos.
I also used to watch that, but I think we've already aged ourselves twice in this episode. The first one being that we have no pictures of our first 420s, and not just the first, many.
Right.
And now we remember what self-addressed stamp envelopes are. And
you know what? If you are young enough to just be like, those guys, you don't know what it was like trying to hide a High Times behind a Sports Illustrated at a bookstore, okay? You don't know what it was like to try and find the most hidden spot where you could stick your like $5 bag of weed, because if anyone found it, boy, you'd be in trouble.
Oh, you'd be in trouble. That's for damn sure.
You know what? Here's my homage to Canada today, is that I saw some ketchup flavored chips, Doritos actually. They put them out for summer, ketchup and mustard. And I thought, you know what? I'm grabbing these both today. Ketchup for my Canadian pals, mustard because I love this stuff. And then I will have some sort of summary taste test where I can compare the two.
Oh my God. Like, you guys cannot see my face right now. I am shooketh because ketchup Doritos have a long-standing history in my life, like on a personal level. Like on a personal level, ketchup. I'm quavering in my voice.
When I saw them, I was like, okay, got to get them. There's no way I'm going to eat a whole bag of these things, but I mean, for science, I got to get into it. Maybe I will. Maybe it's my new favorite thing. I don't know.
Okay, first of all, ketchup Doritos are arguably the best flavor. I know a lot of people are going to say sweet chili heat, but I'm telling you, it's a mix of the ketchup flavoring and the corn chip really works and the texture, like it's really quite well-rounded of an experience, flavor and texture. I would say that when asked, I'm a chip person, what my favorite chip in the world is, it would be ketchup Doritos. And I would say that for the last 25 years, 20 years, let's say 20 years, because I first tried them when I was a kid and they were limited edition and then they disappeared.
Oh, no.
And 15 fucking years later, in my late 20s, they brought them back for like a month as a limited edition. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought I'd see the day where ketchup Doritos were back on the shelf. I remember. And I was so stoked. So I was buying them every single day because I wanted Doritos to know we want the ketchup Doritos. We want them to stay.
Right. You're like, I got to get these numbers up. They need to know people love this stuff.
That's what I tried to do. So I was eating a lot of ketchup Doritos at the time, getting everyone to buy ketchup Doritos. And they lasted for a few months. And then slowly you could see them dwindling on the shelves and then they were gone. And I thought, oh no, this might be the last. It's been 20 years since the last time. How long do I have to wait? And they did bring them back. They brought them back a couple years later. I think it's thanks to me. I personally emailed Doritos. I'm not even joking. Like this ketchup Doritos are my fucking jam, dude. And they're actually gone again. They brought them back and now I haven't seen them around at all. And now I know.
They drove the trucker full of the ketchup seasoning across the border into Wisconsin or wherever they make Doritos for the West Coast. And they're just cranking them out over there. So guys like me can enjoy them this summer. Now I'm especially stoked and I cannot wait to just get ripped out of my mind to the point that I forget that I have them. And then I go and I open my cupboard like, oh, what am I going to eat? And they're just like shining and golden. And there's like, it's backlit. And I'm just like, oh, that's
exactly how I feel when I see them.
You know, as like a super stoner or somebody who's like high all the time, I really don't get a lot of the like weed effects, you know, like weed doesn't make me super hungry. I probably smoke like 3 times a day before I even eat anything. You know, I don't get the munchies. I don't get that like motivation killer where I'm like, oh, now I just need to sit on the couch and relax. I'm like, okay, I smoke now. Let's wash these dishes and answer these emails, you know? And so my wife, who does not smoke a ton, but will, you know, step out with me for a joint at the end of the night, immediately is like, I'm done answering emails. Show me where the ice cream is. And I'm so envious of that because me as like an all day, like coffee, weed, I just am like maintaining my energy levels all day. But she gets to actually relax and be like, oh, have you tried crushed up chips on this thing? I'm like, oh, give me some of that.
Ooh, yeah, I highly recommend crushing up the ketchup Doritos onto things. That's a good call, actually.
I want to put them on like a cold sandwich. That sounds like appropriate, maybe with the mix. I don't know. We're gonna get
making me really fucking jealous right now because we don't have them anymore. So it's a good thing I'm coming to Oregon so I can just like stock up on a bunch of ketchup chips and bring them back to Canada, which is like obscene. That should be illegal that I have to get ketchup chips in another country and bring them back for my enjoyment. Like,
right? They're gonna run the little like dust detector on your baggage, and then weed dust. They don't care about that anymore. But when they notice that it's, you know, oh, what is this ketchup dust?
Yeah,
open those bags up. Let's see. What are you trying to
swipe my hands? I'm fucked because I'm gonna eat so many ketchup chips in Oregon.
We don't really have all dressed here, and that's more of a Canadian thing. Every now and then they'll like, you know, kick us some pity bags of all dressed, and I'll get into that.
That is true.
There is a brand here that I still need to find that apparently only distributed to prisons until like 5 years ago when they got a little like buzz. And it's sort of like an all dressed, but it's basically like all the flavoring from all the chips just like heavily loaded onto them.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And not recall what they're called, but they definitely have like a found in prison type of name to them. And you know, I think I need to be keeping an eye out for these special edition.
Absolutely. Also, I would say that in the States, the most comparable chip to a classic Canadian Ruffles all dressed would be Voodoo, the Voodoo chips, the black. Yep. I forget what they're called.
Yeah, I think it's just Voodoo, right?
Oh yeah, the Voodoo flavor. Yeah, that it's like, and it's the black bag. I think It's close, but arguably better.
Those are good. And they also do like a voodoo potato stick. If you can find those, I don't even know if anybody eats these anymore besides me, but if I see them, I'll get them. And it is basically like a dehydrated potato strand.
Those are very popular here, but they have like hickory sticks.
Really? Okay. Okay. Well, we got on here to talk about 420, and it's no surprise that we're like, did you try this Reese's with the peanut butter on the outside? Whoa. But yeah, I mean,
I think this is great because I actually on the airplane on the way to 420 met the snack man from the Snacks of Life podcast.
wow.
And he is like I just saw a guy wearing tie-dye at the airport, and my flight was delayed 7 hours. So we were there for a very long time. And I just walked up to him. I was like, yo, tie-dye, you going to van for 420 or what? And we got into a whole snack conversation too, because he's the fucking snack guy in Ontario. And he brings in all these rare snacks that you can't find here and releases them. And his podcast is really fun. It's with Mike Rita, my favorite comedian. And they eat snacks and get hella blazed. And it's amazing. So we had a really good chat about snacks. So I'm in the zone. I'm all about
that. You know what I mean? And you know what? That kind of like comes down to what I did for 420. The weather here was garbage as well. You know, it's Portland. It's always raining. No problem. We walk out. Nobody uses umbrellas here. Like you just get wet. It's okay. It was raining fucking sideways that day. So you could not smoke a joint without it getting super wet, or you couldn't, like, I was trying to go to all these food and weed events because that's my milieu right there. And it was, the rain literally and figuratively put a damper on the whole thing. I still went and checked out a couple of things. Number one was Potland, the dispensary. These guys, the owner, Jake, is just like a cool weed guy. He's total legacy. He knows exactly what the heads are in there to buy. The shelves of his shop are like clap, 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 clap. Like all fresh weed, all like the top shelf stuff is looking banging. And then the like mid-tier stuff is all like a really good value. So nothing in there is like crumbs or cheap for the sake of being cheap, or has been sitting in the back for longer than they knew what to do with. It's just, I can't say enough about their like rotation schedule in the shelves, because so many other dispensaries are fucking that up and like tucking away pounds in the back for like months. And when they finally put them out, they're all dried and shitty. And they're like, why can't we get premium price for this? That's how much we paid for it. Anyway, they also had food. They had some tamales. They had some pizza.
Ooh, tamales!
Like from Tamale Boy here. When you come to Portland, we're going. So anyway, though it was like kind of shitty out and the crowds were like definitely depressed, let's say, it was a good time. And there was lots of great folks who were willing to like step around the corner and smoke a half a wet joint. So I really enjoyed that. And then I went to go see the boys over at Ruthie's, which is a food cart here. You've probably maybe seen them on like Netflix, Go Feed Phil. They're like a really well-known food cart here. And I interviewed them for the magazine a few months ago. And I said, all right, so what's the brick and mortar situation look like? When do you guys, when would you ever move up from a food cart to the next thing? And they were like, never. They're like, we just set our menu to sell out every day, and then we want to live this like luxe life of freedom. So the cart is where it's at. Colin and Aaron over there are like the best dudes. They took an old wood-fired pizza cart, and they were like, why do we need to make pizza? And they're just like grilling pork chops in there and making these insane salads. And they did like a crunch wrap carrot salad for 420. They did a good humor strawberry shortcake bar cake. They were just like doing fun stoner riffs on things. So I even grabbed my kid for that one. I was like, come on, let's go and chill and hang out and kick back and had some good grub. So pretty relaxed, pretty chill, like just some snacks and a little bit of rain and some good weed. But that was my 420 this year.
That sounds perfect. That's the best case scenario. Good food. Hell yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was glad to not have to do anything that was like so industry focused where you're just going to talk to people that are like, you had to come here too? Yeah, me too. Great, cool. Talk to you soon. And I like that you said 419 was like for the folks who were like there to connect. And then all of those people showed up at 420. So it never felt like you were stuck at some corporate thing.
No, and the crew in Van. So, as you know, I was part of the team to roll the world's biggest joint for the
Yes.
Guinness
Tell us
Book
about
of
like how this
Records.
whole thing kicked off. I'm very curious.
So I heard about it a few months ago from my friends at Blunts and Beans Camp Canna. And I was like, yo, I want in on this. This is amazing. So Dale reached out. He was the organizer from Fuck You to Genetics. And he basically organized this whole thing. He put together the team. He organized all the weed and the sponsors. Empire Rolling Papers helped sponsor, and they also provided the paper. And organize this whole thing. But what was so awesome was actually getting to meet all the people, because a lot of them were based out of Alberta, which is a place I haven't spent too much time over the past few years. And there is such a thriving cannabis community there. A lot of folks, again, from legacy to legal or still in the legacy space, providing high dose edibles and just weed to people who need it. So just an amazing team. A lot of the folks came from legacy. And I think that's why it was such good vibes. So yeah, Dale reached out, and then I booked my ticket and I went out there. Unfortunately, I decided to buy the cheap tickets, which I always do, because why would I pay $800 when I could pay like 80? So I flew on an airline called Lynx, which, to be fair, I've never heard of.
Oh, same.
Literally never heard of it. And so I went, and it was, first flight of the day, so I had to be up at like 5 a.m. to get to the airport and all that fun morning airport stuff. And of course, I was very punctual and everything's running smoothly. My bag was a little oversized. They overlooked it. So I was like, I'm winning today. Because it's like $100 to bring a carry-on with these.
Yeah, you must have some skills, because they're always just like, well, I don't know, throw your belt away. I don't know, what can I do for you?
You know what? Here's what I say every time. Hot tip, because I fly a lot. I just kind of kick the bag and I just say, it's mostly a jacket. It'll fit. It's really squishy. And I just treat it like it's kind of a piece of shit. And like, for some reason, people are just like, oh yeah, I guess it'll squish. Meanwhile, I'm like, it's I army roll my clothes. I got my sleeping bag and a compression sack. So just tell them it's a jacket and it'll fit. And for some reason, I don't want to jinx it, but it always works, because I'm actually flying Lynx in a couple weeks to go back to the West Coast. So I'm hoping the good vibes keep rolling.
I love that you're like, look, nobody's paying too much attention here. You're not going to break my shampoo. Just get it going. As long as it arrives where I'm at, I'm in good shape.
Yeah, that's the thing. So you just got to kick it around. They usually let it on for free. So I was feeling great. I was like, I dodged a bullet. This is fantastic. And then we all get on the airplane, and nothing is happening for a little longer than it should have. They keep making announcements where they're like, oh, we'll be heading out shortly. And then we're not moving. And it seems, a few minutes pass and then a few more. And suddenly we've been sitting there for like half an hour, and you're like, this is kind of weird. Turns out one of the flight attendants got violently ill and had to get off the airplane. So they make this announcement that we're short one flight attendant. Folks, we have to deplane. You guys got to get off the airplane. It's not happening.
Your arm didn't immediately go in the air like, hey, I will open ginger ales for these people. Let's go.
Well, and that's the thing on Lynx. The reason it's so cheap is they don't provide anything. Like, they straight up have a huge sign before you get on where they're like, there is no food, there is no drinks, there is no electric, there is no movies, there is no nothing. If you need to charge your phone, charge it. If you think you're going to get hungry, go get a snack, because this plane has literally nothing. So everyone's like, the flight attendants are there for emergencies. That's why they're there. We're not going to shit on flight attendants.
Sure, yeah.
I said the same thing. I was like, you guys don't even serve water. Can we not run this thing with 3 people? I deplane. I'm pissed.
Yes, with good reason.
When you leave the plane, you exit the plane door, and then there's like a series of ramps to get you back to the airport. Around the first turn is a man in a flight attendant's uniform, white as a fucking piece of paper, kind of slunched over, looking like they're dying. And every single person who left the plane walked past the dying flight attendant. And the vibe went from what the fuck to, oh my God, that man is literally dying. So I don't know. I swear he could have been a wax figure. If I had an airline, I'd set one of those up on the corner too, because I went from a 10 to like a -10 because I was like, oh, this is actually serious. This person is violently ill.
It went from like, get me to my hotel to like, okay, look, I just don't want this guy to die and it to be partially my fault.
Oh my God. I was very concerned. So the vibe in the waiting room was so chill because everyone had to walk past this guy in the wheelchair with the paramedics. And it was actually really like, oh, this is real. So everyone saw that. And then, you know, the flight keeps getting delayed and delayed. My baby bro works at the airport. So he came and hung out with me, which was really nice.
That's rad. Was he like, hey, look, I brought you some coffee from behind the scenes. Here you go.
Yeah, it was just cute because I was lying on the ground like a crazy raccoon, just like I live here now. And he's in his full bulletproof uniform and everything. And he just came and kind of booted me a little. And I was like, yeah, what the fuck? You know, he's my little bro. So people in the room were like, what is going on with those two? But he's been traveling and I've been traveling. So actually I haven't seen him in a couple months. So it was great to see him because we live in the same city, but we've been back and forth so much. So anyway, that's an aside. Let's get to the fucking point here.
Hey, I want to hear about your baby brother too. Don't leave those off the story here.
I know. And we took a selfie and sent it to our mom because it was very cute. So that was a highlight as well, seeing my little broski in his uniform too. It was very cute. Anyway, the flight got fucking delayed like 7 hours.
Ugh.
Straight up. I was stuck there for hours. Like it was absolutely nuts.
Okay, and I do have to ask, I typically am flying with cartridges and edibles and usually flour. Did you bring anything? I mean, you were going from one weed city to the next. It's not like you needed it, but I'm like, I gotta have my little something, or I might not be in the best mood.
Honestly, I sat there the whole time thinking, why didn't I bring anything with me?
Yeah, well, that'll teach you.
I was thinking the same. I'm leaving Toronto. I had a little bit of weed, obviously, but like you can't smoke in the airport. So I just was thinking about it a lot. And also because of the situation, I was like, should I just leave? And we have a express. I live 25 minutes on the express from the airport. So like I could have gone home and gone back, but they were like, we can't change your boarding pass. So if you leave, you might not get back in even to go smoke.
Oh, and they're always like, the flight's delayed another 15 to 25 minutes. And you're like, I would never get a cab. I mean, 15, 25 minutes, 7 hours go by. And you're like, I could have gone home and taken a nap. Just let me know. Yeah.
So anyway, 7 hours later, we get on the airplane. I've made a new friend. So I'm used to airports. I was having a fine time. I wasn't even stressed. I was like, whatever, it's 4:19. I don't even have to be here till tomorrow. So I'm just chilling. We get on the airplane and they actually made an announcement that the flight attendant had appendicitis and they were in surgery.
Okay. I've had my appendix taken out. It's bad. It's not nice. He was close to dying. So I'm glad they like zipped him away.
Oh yeah, he looked like he was dying. And I actually appreciated the update, but I also felt like it was a tactic because everyone on the plane was like, oh, damn, that was so I feel like you're less likely to complain. These are some hot tips for airlines if you ever find yourself in a similar situation.
Seriously, you know what? Just take your least tan flight attendant, put them in a wheelchair, give them like a damp look, maybe with a spray bottle, and just like a dead look in their eyes, and you could get away with anything. Sorry guys, there's no Wi-Fi in the flight today, but look at this guy.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went down. So anyway, we finally get on the plane. So I was supposed to arrive before noon, but I ended up arriving around like 7 p.m. Which again, I was like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna go to my friend's house, hang out, get some food. So I end up getting off the plane and getting a slew of messages on my phone. And basically the rolling team decided that because of the rain, which you also experienced, it was torrential downpour. They didn't feel like we could roll it on site on 420. So they decided to roll it that day in a nearby city. But by the time I got the messages, They were freaking halfway through rolling the thing. The city was Surrey. It was over an hour away. It's like 7:30, almost 8 p.m. I'm like, well, I can't rent a car. The Uber is like $150 and the bus is 2 hours. Like, I've been in an airport for the past 12. So I didn't freaking make it to the rolling party.
I have to imagine the transport of this joint, like the big wide load trucks that have like the passenger truck behind them that's just like following to make sure everything's good. I know that's not the case, but I'm picturing that with this joint, you know?
You know what? You're pretty close. So they ended up rolling them in 2 pieces. The total length was around 35 feet.
Ooh, damn.
So they split it into 2. And then an Empire Rolling provided these really long papers. And then they took those 2 joints, they put them on a truck, like someone's truck. I don't know what to call it, a flatbed truck. They put the back down. They had a big piece of plywood. They wrapped the whole thing in tarps. And they drove it an hour in the fucking rain to Thornton Park in Van City.
Wow. Yes.
In the morning. So I got there in the morning. The park was awesome. It was a huge legacy festival. People were had jars of weed everywhere, crazy edibles, crazy joints and cannagars and snacks and like everything. And it's pouring rain. There was so many people there for how crazy it was. Hot deals, stunning weed. It was absolutely divine. And just black market as fuck.
What was your were you just smoking freely? Like, hand me that wet joint. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you. Yeah. Passing it off. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was tons of joints floating around. And a lot of people at the festival. They had a full stage with live music. Obviously, Afro Man performed. Mercules, who's a popular hip hop artist, also performed. Just tons of cool performers were there. The stage all day. And then they showed up with the joint. It was the funniest shit I've ever seen. Cops kept walking by. There was a police presence, but they did stay outside the festival. They were just kind of like maybe a handful of cops. Like, I'm not into it, but it's legal. So they were just kind of there because I think.
Yeah. You know what? Hey, crowd control, not a bad thing.
Yeah. And so they weren't, but they walked by. They were like, what's that? And we were like a little nervous because we actually exceeded the personal limit. So if they wanted trouble, they could have given us trouble because you're only allotted a certain amount per person. So we very much exceeded that with 65 pounds of weed. But they didn't. They weren't.
The joint is mine. It's my legal limit of like 6 ounces or whatever, and the 6 ounces next to it are my friends. Yeah.
It was like, oh, are they going to do anything? But no, they were actually fucking impressed. They were like, holy shit. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And they were super stoked on it. So then we unloaded the joints. We set up these big tents and then a bunch of long tables all the way down and set the joint up all the way across. So even though I didn't get to roll the official joint, I was on the fusion team. So I got my hands in the glue and we put the 2 joints together and made sure that there were no holes in the paper. The thing was like almost a foot wide. It was so insane.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Amanda's there. I'm not. I've got FOMO. And so I'm like, oh, I'll put a post up on the smoking spot. And, I reach into my AI art and I'm conjuring up the world's largest joint, and it spits me out an image of people who are basically rolling hay bale sized joint, like comically large, like as big as a person. And I was like, oh, this is funny. I'll use this image and people will be like, world's largest joint. Cool. I had like 6 or 7 people write to me and be like, that's ridiculous. Why even roll a joint that big when you can't smoke it? And I'm like, a computer spit this image out. This is not Amanda rolling the world's largest joint. That looks much more realistic. So yeah, I thought it was kind of funny that people had that like knee-jerk reaction to a gigantic joint.
I think that's kind of almost what I pictured going into this. But I will say, for all the naysayers out there, we did smoke it. It was smoked. It happened. And the whole contraption was absolutely majestic. I'm going to put together some content, some videos, throw them up so people can see what it was like, because it was so insane. And the crowd was like, what the fuck? This is crazy. They had a huge blowtorch on one end. I've been told not to reveal the industry secret of how we actually got this giant thing to smoke. So there were some techniques involved. And then publicly, what people saw, I can reveal this, was the blowtorch on one end and then a huge like leaf blower on the other end that was like sucking. So
this is too much already. I might have to censor some of this. We might have to beep some of this out.
Yeah, it was insane. And the filter was so cute. And every time I walked by it, seeing the smoking spot logo on it was just such a vibe. I'm so happy that we got to be there. I'm so stoked that I got to be a part of it and that we pulled it off. You know, a lot of chaos happened. I wasn't the only one who got delayed and didn't make it, but the crew came together. Everyone was so nice. It was such a good community vibe. And yeah, man, I like greatest 420 of all time. I literally got to be world's biggest joint attempt, and it was a resounding success. It happened.
It's cool that you guys were able to pull that off, because here that's not happening. Congrats. I love it. I think it's so cool. And I as much as it's kind of like for promo or for attention or marketing, nothing about this whole event seemed like gross or dripping in sponsors or like, Comerica Bank today brings us the largest joint. It was none of that. And so I thought, what a cool thing for Amanda to be a part of.
It was so grassroots, and the whole team, everyone who was involved in organizing and then participated in the actual joint rolling and the grinding and all that, they're all people who are just like us, who have their small hustles in the cannabis industry. They're passionate about weed. It was just all what I would say, just normal people who are part of the cannabis community. It was just such a good vibe. And then the whole festival itself was all just like local growers, people who are outside of the legal market coming together. And then just, of course, people who love to smoke weed. Like a lot of people came to the event despite the rain. That was so fucking cool.
Yeah. Especially like, hey, these are our states and areas where weed has been widely accepted for many, many years. So it's not the hash bash vibe anymore where we're like looking over our shoulder like, oh, hey, can we actually go and celebrate as a community? All of these people could have just stayed at home on their couch, smoked some weed and been like, hey, cool, let's order some food. And I love that they all came out, all got in the rain, all there for that sense of community and like to try some, 1,000 milligram edibles or whatever's available. And it's nice to have that reminder that this is where all of this came from when I can go to the dispensary, and some of my favorite weed is now only available as like pre-packed eighths in like a fancy Mylar bag. It's just like, when it feels like we're kind of getting away from that grassroots, it's nice to be remembered that like it's still around, it still exists. Like these people are still doing the thing. And sometimes all you need to do is look for the friendly guy in some tie-dye and just go talk to that person.
Honestly, I couldn't agree more. I feel like I needed it, because I've been really, living in the city, going to industry stuff, just hustle. And it was actually nice. It was so nice to just remember like the roots, how it all started, the people, and just the vibe was right. 10 out of 10 vibe was right. I loved the team so much. So I reached out to a few of the folks that were on this Guinness Book of World Records, world's biggest joint team. And so I'm going to throw some clips in here of some of my interviews with them, talking about what the experience was like, to try to memorialize this like moment in cannabis history.
Yeah, very cool. We got to experience our own little 420 story, so it's nice to share others. I really like this smoking spot thing we're doing lately, where it's maybe less about like where you're sitting down and actually smoking a joint, but what is the thing about this that's made it into a memory, good or bad, and it's all around cannabis. And when you've been kicking around for 20 years in the industry like we have, like you tend to collect some pretty cool stories.
It's so true.
Yeah, let's keep making those and not turn this into like a corporate holiday where I go to Target and they're like, did you get your 420 cards this year?
I don't know. I live for the day where Target gives you a free pre-roll with purchase, but we all know it's going to be shit, but that's cool.
We talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but just how many like brands are trying to capitalize on cannabis being so like open. The amount of 420 emails I got, maybe I mentioned this on the podcast before, but it was pretty ridiculous. Jimmy John's, Jack in the Box, Savage Fenty, like anyone who could just sort of be like, hey, stoners, we know today's your day, was trying to sell something. So it's kind of crazy that we're at this point now. With that, I noticed this year a lot of people were explaining what 420 is, because to the novice who doesn't really know is kind of like, I guess this is a thing. So what is it? And I think it's kind of cool that this story, which has been passed around for years, has finally been like verified and checked, and like journalists have like interviewed the friends who put this all together. If you're not totally clear on the history of 420, you can go look into the story. But the rough version of it is a group of kids at this high school in California used to meet at this statue after school to go and smoke. And one of them had a treasure map to a weed grow. And so it turned into a thing. It's like, hey, let's meet up and smoke, but let's also go and try and like track down this weed from this treasure map. And I don't know if they ever did find the treasure map weed, but the 420 routine definitely became like ingrained in their friendship group. And then several of these friends went and worked on the Grateful Dead tour. And we all know the Dead is like where Chem 91 or the Chem Dog herb came from. So that scene had a lot to do with like the birthplace of cannabis culture. And 420 was part of that. So like the roadies would all get together and smoke at 420. And then as the Dead traveled through the States and they have this pretty insular group of fans, it just became a popular thing. And then that's why pre-internet, we all knew a little bit about 420. Maybe it was the day that you go and smoke. Maybe that was when you tried to light up a joint after soccer practice or whatever. But it was kind of cool seeing that story become like verified and notes from the friends, and they're all still talking about it. And it's something that is like no longer just seems like a rumor, but like an actual real story that we can trace the roots back to.
Oh my God. Yeah, because I feel like there's the 420 where it came from, the beginnings. There's so many like crazy folk tales about it in the industry. So I would argue that this is probably the greatest breakthrough of modern cannabis, is to actually have the true version. And that I did not know that. That sounds the realest. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, chalk it up to all these other like strain stories where we're trying to track down where OG came from, or the Josh D OG, or just all of these, any of the strain stories that have kind of been lost to time, and now things are flexible enough that we can talk about it without fear of going to jail or whatever.
Wow. Well, holy shit. That my mind is blown.
Right. Well, let's hope that this holiday, let's call it, has inspired lots of other stories. I know we have people from the joint that we want to get in here and slot in. Is there anything you want to say before we get those in?
Happy belated 420. And just congratulations to the team for pulling it off at Thornton Park. And I had my doubts because it was a big project, but Dale, the organizer, just believed in it from the beginning. And he put together a really great group of people that I'm very stoked to have met under such exciting, historic circumstances. So I'm just very grateful that I got to be a part of it.
I'm Dale Rook from World Stoners Lounge. The idea and the event of the world's largest joint was brought upon by a simple conversation with Dano Willocks from Toothless Genetics. If he came with me to the Canna Cup in Vancouver, the Live 42, I would go with him to the Unicorn Cup and participate in that one. So this is how it all stemmed. I thought to myself, we need to get some excitement here. They're all the same but different. It has a consistency that's pretty much the same throughout most Canada Cups. I looked up the world's largest joint, which was done by Tony Greenhand at the time, 60 pounds. I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him. The caption I read there, though, is that he ended up smoking it himself. Now, I took that to heart as, oh my God, are you kidding me? You didn't share that with everyone? So now I had a mission. And with this mission, I thought, let's go 65 pounds to beat him, plus share it with everyone. So we all experience what just went on here. And this is how it became.
I'm Dano, also known as Alberta Ganjapreneur and Toothless Genetics. I love to grow my own medicine. I've been growing marijuana and doing activism for 25, 30 years. I just turned 51 this year. People say, well, why are you protesting? Why do you still need activism? Well, there's a lot of things that still need to change. Like a lot of my friends, some of the guys are still in jail, for simple possession or trafficking, nothing major. So the rules like that, personal possession rules, plant count rules, right now 4 per household, unless you're medical, isn't really, fair. It's a monopoly, right? So don't get me started on that. Yeah, I love everything to do regarding the plant, the medicine, the edible part of it, the growing part of it, and the recreational part of it, of course. If it wasn't for that part of it, we wouldn't have been in Vancouver attempting a crazy world record.
I'm Mary Jenner, half of Tea Time.
And I am Juana Lagroa, the other half of Tea Time with Mary and Juana. Basically, we started our page because we saw a lot of people looking for edibles or something to smoke. They didn't have the money for it. And we just wanted to help out some other people. And Dale, he was on our page and he came on there on New Year's Eve and invited us to be part of the world's largest joint. And we could not say no to that opportunity.
No, it's pretty big. I met Dale almost 2.5 years ago, I think. And he helped me start growing. He sent me some genetics and he supported us quite a bit. He sent us our first banner. He sent us t-shirts all the time. Like, he was pretty good to us.
Yeah.
So he's instrumental.
We were a very, very small page. Our page is private. And so it was just kind of a miracle, really.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Fred Bell. I live in Calgary, Alberta. I operate a store in Airdrie, Alberta called Alberta Growers and Beyond 420. I was introduced to Mr. Dale Rook a few years ago through the World Stoners Lounge and, local community stuff through the Calgary cannabis scene. He's a good soul who's happened to draw together a big collection of people from all over North America to make the world's largest joint, 63 pounds, 29 feet long. Like, how can you not have a good day at that in Vancouver, Vancouver 420 was pretty epic for us all. Even though it was wet and rainy, we made the best out of the situation at hand, and I will say it was hazy and blazy and cloudy.
Hey, my name is Colin Scott, also known as Dad Uses to Most. I came into the Calgary Cannabis Club probably around 2017, maybe early 18. It ended up really putting in a lot of volunteer work to help the community here in Calgary kind of grow, and like Vancouver is up to date on all their like lounges and stuff, so we were kind of trying to start something like that here in Calgary, but also just a safe hub for everybody to smoke at. I got pulled into the world's biggest joint from Dale Rook. We have a show every Saturday at 7 that we started about 2.5 years ago. called High AF Happy Hour, but I got asked to come on down to Vancouver to roll the world's biggest joint, and I was like, I am honored to be able to try it or be a part of it.
Hi, I'm Jolene from Blunts and Beans.
And I'm Alexis from Camp Canada. Is that what we're doing?
Okay. Hi, we're Alexis and Jolene, co-founders of Blunts and Beans and Camp Canada. My favorite part was watching people come up and be like, is that the joint? Because it was raining. So it was under a tent, under a tarp, under another tarp, like all bundled in like a little baby swaddled. And so people would come up and be like, is that it? Can I see it? And then you'd like open the baby swaddle for them. And they'd be like, oh, that's the cutest baby.
Meanwhile, I
It's
thought it looked
beautiful.
like a dead body. When they were transporting it to the venue, they had just had it in the back of a truck, like in two pieces still. And to me, like in the picture, if you didn't know better, you would think it was like two bodies just rolled up in the back of this truck. It was large, quite large indeed. 63 pounds large. Some would say the largest.
Even the Vancouver Police Department, when they showed up, knowing full well that our possession limits are only 30 grams per person, and we have a 65-pound joint sitting in the back of a truck getting ready to be displayed. They had to pose. Once we unloaded that, they posed. 2 police officers posing with the joint and 1 police officer taking a picture, because even to them, this was one of the most incredible things that they've ever seen. It gave me butterflies to watch this. Nervousness, but butterflies, right? The adventure itself, though, it was an up and down climb, mountains, minor hills. It was an adventure. But as it came along, say January, everything was shipped down to Vancouver, readying itself for April. Things were coming together. Tried to get a practice joint going. An extra 65 pounds of pot came in moldy, which went straight to the garbage, which kind of eliminated our practice joint. So we were going at this blind, basically. We all had no idea what we were doing. I'm running off an idea and a theory, which I'm going to tell you, the team came together as one, and we conquered this. We absolutely conquered it.
I was actually pretty surprised with how easy it was to roll. I was envisioning like a marathon of like terribleness, because I can't really roll a joint. And
Honestly,
anyway.
it went exactly how I was expecting it to go and how I was envisioning it was going to go, like right down to the little tuck, like it's a giant log of cinnamon roll. It was pretty good. Like, we definitely stood around smoking a lot more weed than we did actually rolling the joint, transporting it. Like, it had to go 45 minutes in the back of the truck. Like, that's a pretty good way. And for the joint, it could have settled right out, like there's a lot of things that could have went down on the drive, especially in the rain. So
In my mind, I was like, okay, we got one shot at this to get it without tearing anything. So that was my big worry. But then going into it, seeing how it was going, I was kind of like, okay, we've got room for error. But we still had a plan. And we still followed through with that plan. But a few things always change with plans, right? So you never know exactly what kind of roadblock you're going to hit. So being prepared for that's probably the best thing you can do.
Well, first off, there was a little bit of information that people might not be aware of. We got robbed. A lot of the things we needed were in that trailer. So it wasn't going to plan. The plan was being made up as we breathed, as we walked, as we had more people show up to Surrey and Vancouver. It just all fell together.
The Monday prior to 420, which was on a Thursday, all our equipment, all our pot, everything was stolen. We had nothing. All we had were 300 feet of rolling paper, 3 gallons of glue, and a roach tip. Now, this was 6:30 in the morning on a Monday. My next thing was, what do I do? Do I cancel this? Part of the team has already went to Vancouver. I started making phone calls, and lots of them. By 1 o'clock that afternoon, we had another 65 pounds of pot. We were short a lot of equipment, a lot of different things. But the team once again came together and let's conquer it anyways. Let's do this. And it worked out.
I think the cutest thing out of the entire event was like how every single time you would look over at Dale, he would be like a little kid, like living his dream. His face was just like happy that he was smiling all day long. And like organizing people in the cannabis industry is enough to make you want to like out. But like he was like so chill with it and like took the like literally
Rolled with
the
the punches.
one trailer with all the weed in it got stolen. Like he had to come up with this weed like twice, you know, and instead of being stressed and like allowing that to bleed out to any of the team, he was literally like the happiest person of all time. And that was just like beautiful to see this like older man looking like a child, like grinning, like he's at an amusement park for the first time in his entire life. Like that was the coolest thing.
For me, I think the experience of rolling that giant doobie alongside a dozen other people was pretty amazing. And to see it actually come to fruition after all of this time and talk, and especially with a couple of hiccups with stuff being stolen and stuff, it was just great to see it actually come together and work out. There was some skepticism out there by people all over the internet, I guess, and we showed them. So it was great.
I actually think that was one of the funnest things about the people who came. Like, no one was just, it's all just like local people in the cannabis community doing cool stuff. Like, everyone who was involved wasn't like, you know, cookies. It was just like normal people who work in the industry who just love weed. So I think that's actually what made it like really, it was like rolled with love. It's actually quite special.
Something that was really nice was that like the majority of the team that rolled it, like it had to be like such a good teamwork exercise. And we had like never met people, you know what I mean? Like there's people that have like literally never met. I barely know your name. And we work together like so well. I feel like that's just like part of the stoner community, is being able to like jump in and work as a collective, like when you need to. And I think that definitely like called true, like during the rolling, during the event, keeping the vibe high. Like we could have been miserable in the freezing cold Vancouver weather, but we were all like pretty high spirits and excited, and everybody's working together, and it was good. Super good.
After that, everything just fell into place. We had people from Portland, people from Ontario, people from Saskatchewan, people from Alberta, people from British Columbia. It was crazy cool to meet everybody. Names took me about a day or two to remember. Just when everybody was saying goodbye, the names started to stick in my head.
I thought it was quite awesome that the only vehicles allowed on the grass was for the crew that was bringing that big-ass joint down to Vancouver to roll. The cops were impressed with the size and everything. There was no issues with them. They were all smiles and fist bumping everybody. It was a great day, honestly. Got to meet many, many, many people, and some I remember by their names, some I remember by what they were wearing. I was very much a very medicated individual. Watching that bad boy get lit was very memorable. I never once made it to the other end of the joint. I stayed down where it was blazing.
Like, I didn't think we were going to be able to actually light it up. It did light up a bit. Not as much as I wanted it to, but it did light and it did smoke. Like, people got to try it out and get a little puff off of it, which was pretty cool. Yeah, I Unfortunately, I was at the end that was being lit with a torch, so it was hot because it was cold out. So it was kind of nice to be up at the front where that big cherry was, warming your hands up to that massive heater.
It was a long, cold day. In that rain, you're just soaked to the bone, and it takes a lot out of you. But we pursued it, and we went, and
It was a lot of rain. We kept the doobies going nonstop, trying to, make the humidity a little lower, but it wasn't really working.
no. I think meeting everybody was probably my favorite part of everything. Yeah, regardless of the rain, lots of people came.
It's crazy how far people traveled, like some from Ontario, Alberta. The majority of the team, I'd say, weren't
And it was
from
so cold.
BC.
Yeah, there was a lot of people, and like considering it was raining, a cold, heavy rain, not your usual beautiful Vancouver rain.
It would have been cool if the weather would have cooperated, but I don't know if you've seen a lot of our videos. You'll see the tarps hitting our heads and stuff. Of what those tarps were used for, that was our irrigation highway. So the middle was the joint, and then the tarps were over top of us hanging, and every once in a while, some guy would go here and dump the water there and vice versa. And we would go forward and backward, like, because you saw where the tents connected, there was always a little bit of drippage. That's how we ingenuity, that's how we were able to keep that joint dry until we lit it.
An hour
It
and a
did end
half,
up
though.
burning for over an hour and a half. Yeah, the crutch was a little too thick, so it was sticking out quite a bit by the end. But it burned pretty good. I was surprised. There were some moments where, it got pushed a little too far down the table and some weed fell out, but she burned.
I actually thought, like, for me, that was one of the like endearing moments of the whole event is when everyone would shout down the 30-foot table and be like, okay, bring it up a foot. And then everyone would grab the tarp and just slide it so gently forward. And it was just like the whole thing was just such a good vibe.
The highlight for me, 420, probably would have been meeting and rolling the world's biggest joint with all these people from coast to coast and from states. Like, it was insane that the amount of people that came out from around just even the country together just to roll the world's biggest joint, like, boggled my mind. Boggled.
Well, there's a few things that Dale put in place and engineered that if he didn't bring that science into it, we wouldn't have had success. I don't want to give too many secrets away because, there's some proprietary information there. So we want to keep that to our team so other people don't try and duplicate what we did. I think it's going to be pretty hard, even though we made it look easy. None of us knew each other. It's all like we were family and friends, believe it, right? We met, hey, I'm Dan, hey, I'm Amanda. And it's like we knew each other for 15, 20 years. We were one pretty fucking cool team rolling the goddamn world's biggest joint. That's a feat in itself, man.
Well, you know something? There's one individual, and I must say his name, John Burfello. This fella was jumping, pretty much yelling at the top of his lungs, explaining, "You just fulfilled a lifelong dream," and it was so electric. I don't know how to feel. It was just one of the most incredible moments. Other than the joint itself, it in itself was absolutely incredible. Tens of thousands of people standing in the pouring rain and happy about it. It was incredible. To explain it precisely, a person really can't.
I've been part of the cannabis community in Calgary and area for over 20 years. I've worked in the industry for a long time. And to see this happen, to think that a bunch of people from Calgary, Toronto, Washington, Portland, to think that we all came together from all walks of life and did something that I honestly thought maybe Vancouver might actually have a record on that already, but they didn't. And I mean, I think it's pretty awesome that Dale set this all up. Just to see that the community bonded around a legacy market experience like that You know, the rec market is the rec market, the medical market is the medical market. They call the legacy market the black market, but I prefer legacy because they've always been the ones there to help us throughout everything that we go through. And as a medical patient of 20 years, I've been licensed since 2001 for medicinal marijuana. I deal with massive chronic pain and nerve issues, and I'm just super happy to see that so many still understand and follow the legacy market. I mean, so many jumped the other way, and I appreciate those that stood beside us before, but those that are still standing with us now, I truly applaud, because with legalization, everybody says it's legal, let's just get it done. Well, there's no reasonable access for patients, and that's my biggest fight right there, is we can't go into a medical dispensary city by city, town by town. You can only order from one place in Ottawa. So for me, to be with everybody down there at that event and to hear others talk about medical journeys and medical experiences, it just strengthens my stance as an activist to keep up the fight. You know, reasonable access, low barrier access, you know, all of this is going to help change the stance for medical people, and that's why I keep fighting.
The experience itself was pretty neat. It was pretty crazy to have everybody come in and ask us questions. You know, looking at that thing, 13-foot sections, pretty much. It was game on for us. Everybody was smiling, high-fiving. The smoke was flying at 420 when they lit the joint. Live music, Afro Man, Mercules, Empire Papers, Kyle at Empire Papers. If it wasn't for them and that neat little roll of 24-inch paper and some glue.
Well, going to the Afro Man show afterwards, like, I got to get Afro Man high at his own show. Like, I was quite happy with that. I handed him a joint live on stage, and it was to think, you know, you don't think that you're going to get to see your idols and watch them smoke with you, and next thing you know, they're smoking with you. It was truly awesome. I was 100% happy as hell.
It was really epic, though, that, you know, we got to be besties with you across the country through cannabis, and it continually brings us together in different shapes and forms, and that's a blessing. It takes serious passion to dream a dream and then see it to fruition. And those are my kind of people.
To myself, it still feels like a dream. I can't believe it actually came out the way it did. It's amazing. It's something that you'll experience it once in a lifetime. I'm hoping to experience it 3 times. Our next one will be 80 pounds. Much different though, much more engineered. And once again, one more practice joint. Yeah, the final joint will be 100 pounds. That's my goal, and let's do that.
So shout out to Dale, World Stoners Lounge. Fuck you to Genetics, the whole rolling team. They're fucking amazing.
And where can people find you guys?
They can find us at Tea Time with Mary and Juana. We do infused cannabis infused teas, green tea, black tea, herbal teas, all of that, and a bunch of other little treats too that we do giveaways for on our page to share the love. We're getting ready to go to Camp Canna in the summer with those girls, the Blunts and Beans girls. Other than that, just looking forward to the future and a possible another world record to break.
Well, at the moment, you know, I'll be present at the Grow Up in Edmonton at the beginning of May. After that, I'll be at the Unicorn Cup in Salmo, British Columbia on August the 18th to the 20th. Then I'll be at Camp Canna. Also, you can find me on Instagram under Fuck You Too Genetics and World Stoners Lounge. The goal is to open up consumption lounges across the nation for everyone. This way here they have a safe place, bring even more together.
Every Saturday at 7 Mountain Standard Time, High as Buck Happy Hour. Invite your friends, tell your grandma. As many of you may know, and maybe some of you may not know, we've had a lot of grandmas winning on our show. So, tell everybody, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your stoner friends, tell your grandma that might tote. We give stuff away every weekend. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And then you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Toothless Genetics on Instagram. Alberta Ganjapreneur on Instagram. I bring high quality, high dose products to patients, stuff like 1,000 milligrams packages, 1,600 milligram packages. It's really hard for patients to get what they need from the stores. The government's supposed to provide reasonable access. I still question that word reasonable because, again, the monopoly, the rules in the stores, the amounts, if I want to buy more than an ounce, I got to leave the store and then I got to come back.
You will find me on either my Facebook page under Fred Bell, or you will find me on Instagram under Pastor Doobie or Fred Bell or Beyond 420. Word of mouth is what I use the most right now, and we're doing good.
Perfect. You can find us at Blunts and Beans on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, or at camp_Canna on Instagram. Well, if you're online, you can check out bluntsandbeans.ca or campcanna.ca.
Tickets are now on sale for Camp Canna 2023, going down August 18th to 20th. This is going to be an epic, one-of-a-kind weekend for the cannabis community.
Pew, pew, pew.
Said no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find your smoking spot.